So now we're finally in, like, I think the most exciting part of this video, which is the theories. So, obviously there's so much happening, and I had a really great time looking through people's theories and even just, like, thinking of my own and stuff. I saw this really cool theory on TikTok. Someone actually commented on, because I think I've talked a little bit about before, I do actually have a School Spirits TikTok as well, which you can follow at Split River Society. And someone had actually commented and said something about their theory that they had just posted, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely gonna check that out. So shout out to you. They have this whole theory. They were saying, like, they think that Van Heidt is like some sort of demon, and that, like a lot of us are saying, that he possessed Ralph, because once again we see the like devil horns on like the drawing and stuff. And then they think that the reason that they always are like put back into the library when they're like spit out of like the water is because maybe the library is like where the graveyard was, and they were saying that maybe the graveyard is like where the demon of Van Heidt or whatever came into the picture or something. And so it kind of is like, it's like a rubber band, and it just like puts them back to like that original like trauma spot kind of. So I thought that was a really interesting theory. And then, this person even goes on to talk about how, like, I feel like it's starting to make more sense with like the timeline of when the different ghosts have died. Like if it was like Van Heidt maybe trying, like specifically kind of manipulating things and trying to get people to die or whatever. Because, like, for example, so like if he was in Ralph's body, like I did the math and everything, and it does make sense. Like he could have been like about 85. Like Ralph's body would have been like about 85 in 2004, so he would have been like maybe starting to die. And then, he obviously like wanted another body to go into, so it would make sense if like, that's why then, he was looking for another body, and maybe he even kind of caused the bus crash somehow or whatever. Like maybe he was kind of responsible for Mr. Martin being taken to that and causing that. And then that's why like the bus crash was like the last death to happen at the school, like the latest death, not counting the body snatchings obviously, because like he hasn't needed a new body yet, because it's been 20 years and he's been just in Kyle's body, who is only like 40 or something, so like he hasn't needed a new body yet. So I just thought that was all very interesting. And yeah, I just like, I don't know what to think about, like, if I think Van Heidt is like literally some sort of like demon thing, or if he just like, it's just supposed to represent that like he's evil. I could really see it going either way. Like I really don't know if it's gonna turn out that he really is some sort of like very like demonic spirit or something, or if he just like is a bad person. But I definitely think that whole like theory about like the library being like the spot where the graveyard was, and like that's why they get taken back there, I think that is like a really cool thought, because obviously I've been like really confused like why they specifically go back to the library. I've seen a couple different people say that maybe the exit doors aren't quite what we think, and maybe they don't have to do with crossing over, and maybe they actually like kind of I don't know, like take you to some other like type of dimension, or make you able to like go to different places or whatever, because they were saying like maybe that's how Van Heidt has been like getting around, is like the door in the nurse's scar isn't really like to go to heaven or whatever, it's like to get through, like to go into like the hospital, and then to go into like the school, back to the school and all that stuff. Like I don't know, like maybe it just like leads somewhere else, like it's almost like a passage. So I don't know how I feel about that. Like I could see that being a thing, but I also just feel like it would kind of not make sense, because I just feel like they've put so much like emphasis on like the exit doors, and like, I don't know, like I just feel like there's such strong like imagery of like that, and like the possibility of the ghost finally like having peace or whatever. So I would be kind of surprised if they made it like not like that, but I don't know. So this person has a theory about why Van Height said to Maddie, like, you're a lucky girl. They say, I think when Maddie went to the spirit realm, she got a door like the other ghosts. But I'm thinking the reason he said Maddie is a lucky girl is because now that she has this door, she can go through it to go in between the spirit side and the real world freely. So I thought that was really interesting. Someone even said too that it almost looks like her door doesn't have like the exit sign above it, so it could almost even be like a reverse exit. Like instead of taking her out of the spirit realm, it's letting her into the spirit realm. So that would be cool. And once again, maybe that's like why he's saying like you're lucky, because she can now like go in between and like be with Wally and be with all these people, whatever. Once again, I don't know like quite how I feel about it, because like I feel like I could see them doing that, but I also feel like it would maybe like backtrack a lot of the like growth that Maddie has had, and like just the whole significance of her like leaving in the second season and like getting her body back and whatever. Like I feel like it would almost kind of like reverse that. So, and then obviously it would just make it like even harder for her to like, you know, watch the ghosts just like cross over or whatever, like if she can like literally interact with them. So I don't know, but that would be interesting to see if that was true. Another thing that, you know, I think a lot of people have said, and I definitely kind of thought like at the end of that episode, was the possibility of Dr. Hunter Price also being a body snatcher like Van Height. Obviously we know there has to be something deeper and weird about Dr. Hunter Price, because, you know, they've just been hinting to it for so long, and even just like in all the interviews and everything, like they've just made such a big deal about Jennifer Tilly being in it, and she's hinted at there being like darker secrets with her and everything, but we still haven't like really seen what it is. So, you know, it did just make me think like, well, there could be a possibility that she is also a body snatcher. Maybe she was also from around the time of Van Height or something, but I don't know. But it still doesn't quite make sense. Like, I still don't really understand like why she's so set on like getting rid of the school, because some people have even said like, same thing with like, it doesn't really make sense why Van Height as Kyle was like giving money to fund like the school being taken down, because like you would think like that would give him like less opportunities of like taking bodies and stuff, like if the school was gone. So it's still a little confusing in that department. And also a lot of people have said like it's kind of weird, because you would think like, oh, if she's also a body snatcher, like maybe she's like in cahoots with Van Height, but then like the way that she acts, like when she goes to the door to talk to him and she's just like waiting for him and she's just kind of looking around, and like she doesn't just like go into his house, or like I don't know, like it doesn't seem like she's having this like special like meetup with him. Like it seems like she kind of like doesn't know what's going on with him, which makes you think like she doesn't know he's Van Height and like doesn't know everything. So I don't know. So then that's like weird too. But I want there, you know, to be something like supernatural about her, because obviously that would like, I feel like it would be really anticlimactic if like she's just like a bad person, but like not like in a supernatural way. But I don't know. Leave your thoughts down below. Once again, I think we're finally gonna get more of like her story in the next 2 episodes. Some people have even said like they feel like she's actually more of like the big bad than even like Van Height is. Like maybe like she's trying to like stop him and like get the power that he has, kind of, and like stuff like that. Because once again, she has a very similar like conversation with Livia. Like she says very similar things as like what Van Height says about like you can outlast every consequence as you get older, and like she says to Livia like you're on your own and you have to trust yourself. Like they kind of give these similar like speeches. And then once again, she also says you're a lucky girl to Livia, which also like would make you think like the writers are trying to like subliminally like make you like connect Van Height and Dr. Hunter Price in your brain. So yeah, so like I feel like there is a connection between them, but I don't know. And then I mean this kind of just goes into like with the theory of like Van Height being some sort of like demon or whatever, but like, you know, a lot of people have said like they think even Van Height wasn't this entity's like original body or like form. and that Van Height could actually just be like this very old, once again, like demon or entity or whatever that's like been just like body hopping like for a long time, like even before Van Height. So I don't know. I mean, once again, I could really see it going either way, because I feel like, you know, they could go like, you know, the really crazy way of it being like he's this demon and, you know, it's like goes really far back. But, you know, it could also just be that Van Height just like was a really terrible man, and then, you know, he did all this. And yeah, this person has a really interesting theory. They said Simon was pulled into the water from the flood created by the splitting of the river. If he has the ring in his pocket from the offering tray, he has a key to all the scars in the hospital, because that's where it was made, the foundry underneath. I completely forgot about the fact that Simon had the like copy of the ring or whatever, like from the scar. I don't know if he actually like had it on him like in that moment, but it's true that like if he did, maybe, you know, if he gets out, he will have this like version of the ring, and maybe that actually will like give him the powers that Van Height currently has. Because obviously that's another thing, is we see that Van Height seems to have this like power with the ring. Like it seems like the ring lets you kind of like just go anywhere, basically. Like maybe that's how he was able to like get into the hospital and go into the nurse's scar and like all this stuff. So maybe if Simon has like a copy of this, he would be able to get into these different places, and maybe that would help them, you know, like get into the hospital and stuff like that. I just said Simon got out, like, you know, I think he did. And a lot of people have also been saying that they think maybe like because of this whole thing that we're finding out about, that there may be these like connections between like the hospital and the school, that maybe at some point Maddie and her dad will actually be able to see each other, which I think would be so like beautiful, and I really hope that happens. And then another theory that me and like my parents who watched the show with me, we were kind of saying that maybe, because once again, like if the pastor did get out with the flood too, like Simon maybe, like I was saying, like, but what would that really mean for him? Like, because he's so old, like, you know, would he just die again or whatever? But my dad was saying, what if he, like, if he got out, he was like the same age again that he was like when the flood happened. So that would be really crazy, because obviously we know that he was alive. It's not like he was dead, like he was alive. So maybe him getting out would almost kind of like reset him to like how he was before he got trapped. So if that happened, obviously that would be insane, but I just don't know if they would like go down that path, because I don't know then like what he would do. Okay, now this person has what I think is my favorite theory that I've seen so far. So they said, I'm wondering if there was some deal with the devil that gave the wearer of the ring immortality, so to speak, in exchange for the soul when it died, and didn't inhabit a body any longer. In response to the timing of being accused of going back to 1900s, Casey says slyly, or even longer, or something to that effect. I think it's some magical relic like this that the soul has been wielding for who knows how many lifetimes, kind of like the invisible cloak in Harry Potter that hides one even from death itself. Okay, so I think this is a really cool theory. So they're basically saying, you know, the ring might not just be like this thing that lets you like go through different scars and stuff, but maybe it's like literally like some sort of like immortality type of thing, and like, you know, makes it easier for you to like keep having like new opportunities to like go into a different body and just like keep living. And you know, maybe that's why Van Height has been around for so long as these different people or whatever, like, because obviously a lot of us think he was Van Height and then Ralph and then Kyle, and like, you know, so he's been around for a long time. Or like people have been saying maybe he was around even longer. But I thought that was really cool too, like the way they compared it to like Harry Potter. But when I read this, I actually thought of a different item from Harry Potter than the cloak. I thought of the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone if you're not in America. Because, you know, obviously that whole thing is that you know, the stone keeps you immortal, and that's why Voldemort was after it. So I could really see this being true. Like, as soon as I read this, I was like, I feel like this is where this is going. That would also make sense why, like, they were saying it's like like there was something with the ring that was like a bribe, and like it's this family heirloom that's been passed down and stuff. Like, it just like makes you think this object is like very powerful and like very important. So yeah, I just really like this theory. I mean, obviously the actual origins of like why this object is like that, why it has this power, whatever, we don't really know, but I just think that would be really cool if this is true. So now, to wrap up this video, I'm just going to kind of talk about like what we know about the next episode so far, what we can expect probably, and just some other things about like pictures that like were released that we still haven't like seen those parts in the show yet, and like theories on what they could be. And yeah, so we know that the next episode is called Mid-Semester, which is obviously a reference to the 2019 horror film starring Florence Pugh, Midsommar. So the description says, after a shocking event, Maddie and Xavier come under suspicion. As the living investigate a corrupt scheme, the ghosts search their scars for clues. So this is very interesting. Very like scary to hear that Maddie and Xavier come under suspicion, which sadly is not shocking. I mean, yeah, people are gonna come and find freaking Maddie and Xavier with Casey's body and be like, what the heck happened? Even though, once again, I don't think he's like dead, but you know, it's just gonna be weird. But this is of course just gonna complicate things even more. People are gonna think Maddie's even more crazy and all this stuff. Oh yeah, and that's another thing I didn't even really talk about yet, is like, obviously now we're also wondering what's gonna happen with Kyle's body, because if he did die, then Kyle would never be able to go into his body, which would be really sad. But the only way they can let that happen, like let him go back into his body, is if they literally like rush his body to the hospital and somehow get Kyle to go back into his body. So obviously that will be very crazy if that happens, and I just don't know how they're gonna like get his body without like other people seeing them take it and stuff. But unless he just gets rushed to the hospital separately and then Kyle still like is able to get into it. Yeah, so as the living investigate a corrupt scheme, so obviously that's making me think about like, you know, just the whole thing with like Casey and like Dr. Hunter Price and like what's happening with them and like their whole scheme to shut down the school. And then the ghosts search their scars for clues. So first of all, I just want to say I'm really excited about that, because I'm happy that they're finally like going back into their scars, because first of all, like I said, I want them to actually check and see if they have their doors or not. But also, you know, I just think there's like still more to be explored in the scars, and I'm like excited to see that. But I'm trying to think like what could they be like looking for exactly? If there's any clues of like hinting that certain things caused their deaths, even like because of like Van Height or something, I guess, or like if they're able to like go through their scars to get to other places like the hospital or whatever, or I don't know. I genuinely don't quite know what they're investigating in their scars, so that would be really cool to see. Leave if you have any thoughts on that down below. So this is a picture that was like one of the pictures that were like released to the press like in like promotion for the season, and apparently someone said, like it was said somewhere, that this shot specifically was from episode 7, and we see like Maddie with her mom again, and Sandra's looking very concerned as usual and like holding her hand, and then Mr. Anderson is standing behind them. So obviously we see that Mr. Anderson will finally be making a return, and Sandra is back from her treatment too. So obviously I'm just like excited about that, because I really like Mr. Anderson and I really liked his character, especially last season. So I'm very excited to see him again, but I mean, I'm kind of confused like why we're seeing him again and like what he's gonna like do. But obviously we know like he's one of the only people that also knows about the ghost world and everything. So, you know, maybe Maddie can even tell him what's been happening with Simon and everything, and maybe he can even help them a little bit. But I'm thinking maybe he comes back though initially because maybe he was even the one that like picked Sandra up, like to take her back home from the treatment center or something, because we know that they were kind of starting to establish a little like friendship, and like he had gone through, like his dad was an alcoholic, so he kind of has this like he wants to help people like Sandra and stuff. But then also I think it's crazy that we see that obviously like he still has this like huge scar on his face from when, you know, Mr. Martin was in his body and Janet like hit him with the oar and everything. So it's just like crazy to see that, and poor Mr. Anderson, his body has been through all this stuff. And then there's a couple more pictures that I want to talk about. So like 2 more like stills that we haven't seen yet. So there's this picture where it seems like Nicole and Claire are like at something, like I guess, I don't know, either like another town council meeting where they're talking about taking down the school or something like that, you know, because they're around like all these people, and there seems to be like someone's holding a poster in the background that seems to say like our school, and it makes me think it says something like save our school or like something like that. So obviously I think this is them going to some sort of thing, kind of like Maddie and Xavier, to try to like stand up for the school and like not let it get shut down. And I feel like that has to do with what the description said of like the living investigating the corrupt scheme or whatever, so that's interesting. And then I had completely like forgotten about this because just like so much has happened. But then I remembered this was a picture that like people were really like freaking out about when it first came out, like right before the season started, which is this picture of Wally, and it seems like it's like a flashback from when he was alive, because obviously he's not like in the same outfit, but he still has like a football like thing on, but he's like the cars around him seem to be more old-fashioned stuff. And yeah, so we really think that this is like a flashback of when he was alive, and we still haven't seen it yet. So I don't know when we're gonna see it, but I'm so excited to see it because I just love when we get more flashbacks of when the ghosts were alive. Like that's why I loved when we got the flashback of when Rhonda was alive again and when she was like talking to Joyce and whatever. So I will be so interested to see more of Wally being alive, because all we've gotten of him being alive was that one scene back in season 1, you know, the one flashback of when the day he died, when he was like talking to his mom and she was like, get out there, like not caring that he was like injured, and like that was the only like thing we've ever seen of him being alive. And obviously I think it would also be interesting to see it because we know that he was a very different person when he was alive, and he was a little bit of like a bully and stuff, or like a bystander. I'm also just wondering like why we're gonna see that, you know, like what is gonna be the context? Is it gonna have to do with like, you know, the fact that everyone's like seeing their doors, and maybe they're gonna be kind of like talking about it, and it's just gonna have them like reflecting on like what they've learned and, you know, what their life was like and everything, and we're gonna like see the flashback. I don't know. But then one more thing I want to mention is that, and I think I mentioned this briefly last time, but we saw like from many different people in the cast, like their TikToks and Instagram and stuff, that basically like almost every character seems to have had a body double in this season. And obviously with Simon, like we kind of get it. Like we've seen moments where he's needed a double, like specifically for the scene that we just saw of like him being taken by the flood. Like we know that was like a body double was necessary. But we still don't really know. Like we got this picture of like Charlie and Yuri having body doubles, and then Dr. Hunter Price having a body double. And like I just feel like I don't, unless I'm forgetting something, like I don't think we've seen anything yet with those characters specifically that would like require them to have a body double. So I'm just still so curious like why almost everyone seems to have a body double, and like what this means. Like obviously this makes me think some huge crazy like things are gonna happen, like especially maybe in like the finale, that are very like physical and stuff and require these body doubles. But yeah, so I just think that's really interesting, and if you have any like theories about that too, definitely put it down below. So that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed. Obviously that was a lot. This episode was so crazy and so great, but yeah, I literally just can't wait any longer for Wednesday to see the next episode. And once again, of course, as always, leave any of your theories and thoughts down below. I would love to talk about it, and I'll see you soon to talk about episode 7. Bye!